So what I'm going to show you in a demo, I'll show you a brief little snippet of how AUSM works, the user interface page, and how its configuration might work under a couple different scenarios, how assigning security based on rules works, troubleshooting content access, and auditing. The first one we'll hit is advanced user security mapping and defining the rules. So this is the rules UI for managing the multitude of rules you might define in your environment. There's really no limit of rules you can manage within advanced user security mapping, but I will say as you create the rules, they are evaluated top to bottom in that order. You can move them around by drag and drop with a simple little interface like this, and I can enable, edit, copy, or delete my rules. I'll open up a few and talk about the first couple in the list here. So this first example grants a contributor role by group. We evaluate the role type of attribute of group. AD group contributor is the defined attribute here, and our role is contributor, and our legal read-write is the account access that we are granting people in this group to the content that's in the content server. So your content would need to be tagged with the right legal account as well as part of your contribution process. I can test the rule out by going through the evaluation process, and it will tell me what rule access I've been given access to, and I can do that for all of my rules throughout my process. I can also do an evaluation by the user. In this case, I'm doing with a sales 1, and I have denied access to a department 1 read-only. So I can deny as well as grant access through my rule evaluation. And in order to get the benefit of rules that have multiple attributes assigned to them, you can concatenate things together on a single rule to apply them to multiple people who might be, in this case, a user department of finance, and I can grant access to a multitude of roles that I type into this text box or pull from my predefined content server role list. I can add a number of accounts and varying degrees of privileges on the rule as well, or pick them from my defined accounts. And I can also add aliases that I might want these individuals in the finance department to have access to when dealing with workflow, for example. And I can pick them from my defined content server alias list as well. So in one rule for the entire finance department, I can grant all those privileges for them to do their job within the finance department, which cuts down the number of groups that all the individuals have to be put into on the LDAP repository side of things. I can delete a rule if I don't like the one I've created or if I didn't finish one, and it will clear that rule out of the list. So let me take you over to and show you what an example of that looks like. So I have a Sales Demo 1 user. When I look at their profile page, they have access to the following roles and they have access to the following accounts. In one scenario I mentioned earlier, there was the Department 1 that I was denying that person access to. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to execute that role, and this role that I have here, or this rule that I have here says I'm deny right now, but I'm going to flip it over to grant, and I'm going to save the rule, and I'm going to run my initiation process to retag that so I can sync up with my rule definition. And then as I refresh the page and come back to the sales demo individual, that the new department was granted access to advanced user security mapping. So now I have that as part of my process, and I can, in this case, look for a file. This particular asset has been tagged with the security of Department 1, so only people with Department 1 access can see it. This user was granted access, and when I go back and take that access away through the rule denial, and just repeat the opposite of what I did, deny access to that, save the rule, and run my initiation again to get the update out there because I want it on demand at this point. When I come back and I run that same test again, I will not have access to that document that was tagged with Department 1. So that's just a quick demonstration of how the different rules can be managed and maintained within the content server and provide access through attributes, group mapping, or OU mapping versus an LDAP. There's also, I can perform the evaluate user permissions that I performed while I was in the rule at any time. This is an admin function. I can even evaluate those rules and those steps within those rules to see how they were ordered and what the user was finally given access to when all the rules have been applied. The Retrieve User Access feature is the one I mentioned that allows you to look for all users who have access to various security groups, accounts, and the permission levels within that combination of those lookup values. It brings back the username, the full name, the email address, and the permissions of that, and allows you to download that file to Excel and share that with other individuals. I can get a different set of results if I look by security group versus account, depending on what your security model is. And again, it repeats all the individuals who have this combination of access. That same feature is available to a user who might be semi-power user or sub-administrator, if you will, so I can retrieve user access on behalf of my department or my group. And these are only the accounts and only the groups that I have access to that I can perform this lookup on. So now I can triage my finance department who has read access to the finance department account.